Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. It's Sunday, it's TFcon. You know it's Sunday because I'm not wearing a sports coat. So, we have a unique panel this year, a panel that has never been done before at TFcon, and who knows when we'll get to it again. This is the Guinness World Record largest Transformers collectible panel. And I'm going to let Mr. Mike Kaye, the man himself, do a little brief video introduction before we get into it.
Yes, and welcome for joining us here today. My name is Mike Kaye, and I'm going to be breaking the world record for Transformers memorabilia. Current record is set at 5,150. We expect to hit right around the 10,000 mark today. I've been collecting since I was born, basically, so I've been collecting about 39 years, have very many exclusives from overseas. I have lucky draws, prototypes, just about anything you can think of, which you'll see a lot of that here today. Also attending this count will be some of the best collectors I know. To my right is Mike Carter. Mike Carter is going to be our resident expert. Mike has been collecting also for about 39 years. He is an expert on UK, has attended many of the conventions, stays up to date on all Transformer news, and is very keen to all the happenings within the Transformer universe. To my left is Howard Wagner. Howard has been collecting Transformers since 2018. In addition to that, he also collects many other toy lines such as Gundam and Pokemon, as well as Power Rangers. Now, also joining me will be on this count will be Kyle Nisbet. Kyle has also been collecting just about since the time Transformers came out, for roughly about 35 to 36 years. Kyle is an expert when it comes to the comic realm, and he also stays up to date on all the Transformer happenings. Roger Fisk will also be joining us today as well, helping with the count. Roger's not a Transformers collector, but he is a professional wrestling collector, having much of the memorabilia, including many of the signatures, toys, and t-shirts. Now, today what we'll be doing is we have most of the Transformers staged throughout my house. You will be able to see many of the different lines as we go through, and we'll be sitting here at the table today. We will have a counter that will be going up to let you know what number we are on. This will correlate to the spreadsheet. We'll do any updates that are needed at the end. We have our computer here that has our entire spreadsheet of all the different toys that we'll be counting, just to make sure that they are in the correct order. And as we go through, we'll be packaging them back up, moving them to the side, and going through each one of the lines until we get to the end. Now, each one of these will be roughly a gig, so we'll probably go through one line at a time and then be able to upload that to the website. Now, Kyle's going to walk around here really quick just to give you an idea of what the setup looks like and get an idea of how we'll be doing this count.
Very professional.
You can see here we have a lot of the next toy lines staged. Those will be handed to me as we're doing the count. You can see many of the boxes for all the lines. They are separated by line at the moment, just to give us an idea of what we'll be counting, and those are all of our staging areas.
Oh yeah. What was the final count on how many tubs you
now
have?
see an idea of what we will be doing here today.
18.
We hope you enjoy the count. We will try and keep this interesting for you, since there will be a lot that you'll be going through. So we appreciate all of your time and effort as you also confirm and count our collection. Thank you very much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the new Guinness record holder for largest Transformers memorabilia, Mr. Michael Kaye. His assistants. Congratulations, Michael.
Thank you, sir.
You don't need to clap for his assistants. This is Mike Carter, Kyle Nisbet, Howard Wagner, and Roger Fisk.
Let me tell you, my wife was thrilled that I had the entire house full of toys. She actually left for the weekend because she was just like, I'm out, I'm done. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate, TFcon and Rick helping me out to get this panel. It was something that was, thank you, Rick. It was something that I really wanted to do. And I've told my story a lot this weekend when people come up and talk to me. But basically what happened was I was just at a point in my life where I'm like, I have these toys, like many of you, I've been collecting for 40 years, and there was just too many. I didn't know what to do with them. Who's going to take them when I die? My kids didn't have any interest in them, and I just said, I think it's time to start selling them, like a lot of people do. And I said, but before I do that, I want to break that record. And I want to see what I can do. And so this was a 1.5-year journey for me to break this record. My toys had to go coast to coast a couple of times. We had to get spreadsheets updated. We had to take pictures of 10,000 items. It was really interesting. But for this, I really wanted to kind of break this into two parts for you. Online, the question's always like, what counts? How does this work? What is the process? And that's where I really wanted to start today, was showing everybody what the Guinness process is to break this record. And then from there, I'm going to tell you about my story, about that 1.5 years and how it took that long to actually get to this point. And so hopefully you can go down this journey with me and relive some of the fun that I've had. Oh, just to go back to tell you guys a little bit about our Mascot Electro. So again, I had to transport stuff back and forth. And anybody familiar here with gold plastic syndrome? Oh yeah. So most of the figures actually made it unscathed. Rick, do not open that. Most of them made it unscathed. Unfortunately, Electro burst into pieces. And so he kind of became our mascot, though, for breaking the record. So we used that. We actually had one of the members in the group I'm in trying to put this back together. I don't know how successful he's been, but we ended up getting a mint-on-card one that Rick is trying to open for me to kind of commemorate when we actually finished. All right, we went through the introductions already, so I'm not going to stay too long on this, but you can see all of our team members here. For Guinness, I'll get into detail, but you had to have 3 people, and we ended up with 5. And these guys were a tremendous help. I could not have done it without them. All right, so like I said, I'm going to start out first talking about the Guinness process. What does that application look like? What do you actually have to submit? What counts? What doesn't count? And kind of go into detail on each one of those for everybody out here. All right. The first part is actually fairly easy. This is the application. So you just go into Guinness, you find the Transformers World Record, and then you just have to fill out an application. Now you go through and it just asks you a few things. It's really not in depth. It just says, why do you think you can break it? What's the estimation of what you think you can break? When do you think you're going to break it? Just things of that nature. Nothing too in depth to start out with. The only thing, and I've heard this a few times online, that you have to pay to do this. You actually do not have to pay to break a Guinness World Record unless there hasn't been one in the past. What you can pay for, though, is you can actually pay to have it expedited. So it takes them a long time. Guinness is very slow. So you can pay to have it expedited to get your application done. You can also pay to have it expedited to have them review your footage, review it, and give you the record. You can also pay to have somebody come out and watch you count it, and then you can be certified on the spot. However, we went the cheap route. I did pay to have it expedited on the back end, which I'll talk about, only so that I could have it done here for TFcon. All right, so this is going to be a little bit of the boring part, but I'm going to kind of read verbatim.
Mike, can I ask a quick question?
Of course, Rick.
Overall, how much are you into trying to get this expedited and done? How much money did you, in the end, give to Guinness to get this process done?
So overall, I gave $650. That was for the expedited price. It was either going to be 3 months for them to review it, or it was going to be, it's like a week. And so I went with the week approach. But on the front end, I think you can pay $800 to have them do the application quicker. And then for somebody to come out, I didn't even go down that route, because you'd have to think they have to do airlines, you have to pay for their hotel and on probably their meals. So I just decided I wasn't going to go that route either. We just were able to videotape everything. All right, so a little bit verbatim here, but just so everybody understands, this is what they consider the record definition. The record's for the largest personal private collection of Transformers memorabilia. The record is to be attempted by an individual. Record is measured by the number of Transformer items in the collection that meet our criteria, which I'll go into. For the purpose of this record, the items must be memorabilia from Hasbro or Takara Tomy Transformers franchise. Now, here are the rules. The items can come from the Transformers toy line, films, television series, comic books, or any other Transformers franchise. So some people asked, is it just the figures or is it the comic books? What does that look like? And so it's basically anything that's Transformers memorabilia can go into this. Details where the collection is housed, why it was started, and if there's a particular favorite, giving reasons why it should be supplied in evidence. So if anyone read my cute little article, it did talk about Jinrai being my favorite.
And no third party.
No third party, which I will get into more detail on this, but no KOs, no third party, no die clone. They have a lot of different things that obviously cannot go into this because it's not Transformers memorabilia. It has to be by Hasbro, Takara, or a licensed product. All right, collection must be assessed and counted by 2 independent witnesses, which was Mike and Howard were my official ones that I submitted, and at least one of whom had expert knowledge of the subject of the collection. Now, the expert part, I was like, okay, well, who's an expert in the Transformers community to them? So the first person who comes to my mind is, of course, Rick. And so I contacted Rick and I said, Rick, I know it'd be a trek out here, but would you do that for me? And he says, absolutely, in an instant. And I said, okay, let me see if they'll accept Mike first, because Mike's been collecting as long as I have, has a great knowledge of everything. And so I gave Mike's qualifications to Guinness, and they said he's perfect. So Rick didn't have to make the trek, but maybe next time. Duplicates will not be counted, so you'll see some people have really big collections of like Seekers or Scourges or things like that. If it's the exact same figure, it doesn't count. However, I'll get into some details how they do differentiate between mint and sealed box and a loose figure. All right, more rules. All items must have been commercially available, meaning that they were available to be purchased at some point in time. They don't want anything that's handmade or custom or anything like that. If items are paired, and this was a really interesting one, i.e. earrings or cufflinks, the number of matching pairs must be given. I at first thought this meant anything that was kind of paired together in our Transformers community, and you may think about some of the things like headmasters and things like that. Turns out that's not what they consider it. The only examples they could give me of Transformers things that would be considered to be paired were actually cufflinks and bookends. That's the only examples they could give me. I gave them examples of other things, and they accepted them, so I'll go into that later, too. All right, full footage of, or showing each item individually must be counted in the presence of the independent witnesses and must be provided with the claim. Video footage of the entire collection without counts of each individual item in the collection will not be accepted. You saw a little bit of the video. That was actually our first video because they want like an introduction. So that was the introduction that we gave to Guinness and just kind of showed them what we were doing, how we were going to do it. But we actually did 83 20-minute videos. So that was fun. And then a concise, clear, and audited inventory must be submitted for all claims, either including thumbnail pictures of all the items or labeled with photo names. Inventory must follow the same format. Big spreadsheet. If anybody likes Excel, this was all about Excel for this. I also had to go through, and I know some of you, I've seen it out there, have an amazing way of tracking your inventory. I just never did. And so I had all these toys and tubs and boxes and things like that, and I had to do it all from scratch and take a picture of each one of those individual items, put them into a spreadsheet, and kind of track them all the way through. So the evidence that they're looking for as they go through, this is what you have to submit to Guinness, is a cover letter explaining everything. So this was kind of neat. This would just kind of give you, it's almost like just executive summary. You go in there and you kind of tell them what you're doing, why you're doing it, how long you've been collecting, you know, just some of these normal questions. But then I had to explain everything. So the spreadsheet, you know, there was some color coordination, there was different tabs that they had to look at, all of that. So I went through and basically wrote out a business plan for them to go through and read, and so they knew exactly what they were looking at as we went through. 2 witness statements confirming. We basically just wrote up a statement that Mike and Howard both signed that said, I verify that I was there for the count, I went through everything, looked at the spreadsheet, everything looks good to me. A concise, clear, and audited inventory sheet. So we ended up with obviously about 10,568 lines and lots of different columns for all the different things we were doing. We originally started with everything in order and said we're going to count everything in that order, and it just didn't work out, which I'll show you here in a moment. Photograph of evidence of all the items. Like I said, I had to pull every one, take a nice little snapshot of it, and then that had to be submitted to Guinness as well. The video evidence, again, that was
20 minutes at a time because, like you probably heard in the video, it had to be under 1 gig. So these weren't high quality videos, but we were able to kind of capture everything we needed to, keep them condensed, and then had to submit each one of those. And then just any media articles that would back this up. All right, so here's what everybody wants to know. I am going to preface this by saying you probably will not agree with all this, and it's just something that I will say that there's some things I didn't agree with either. So what I did was I didn't go by just what I thought. I said, okay, let me put together some of the smartest people I know, which are obviously these 5 people up here. I contacted Rick. I had a group on Facebook that was very small just to kind of go through each one of these items and say, how many do you think that is? Do you think that one would count? Does this count or not? And we went through, and there was a lot of items we took in. There's some things we put in and some things we took out. It was really kind of an interesting experience. You also have the opportunity to ask Guinness questions, and they will respond to you within 6 weeks. Everything is very slow. So there'd be a question that comes up, and we'd just be like, okay, do trailers count, like movie trailers count? And you'd have to sit and wait. And so we would go through, and we'd just keep counting and doing everything we were doing, and then based on what they came back with, then we adjusted our counts or did whatever we needed to do. So here is what actually counts. So obviously figures, makes sense, right? Comic books count, art counts. Cards were really interesting. So if anyone's familiar with like the Pokemon World Record, apparently every card you have counts. They were very, very adamant that any set of cards counts as 1. So if you have 300 cards in a Transformer set, it only counts as 1. But if you have one of those cards, it still counts as 1. It was a very strange thing, and we went back and forth with them a few times on it. I know, that was one of the big ones, and it didn't make a lot of sense to us, but we argued it with them, and it just, that was what they said. So again, I know some of you won't agree with some of these things, and neither did I. Licensed products, obviously, this is the things you go into Target, and so-and-so made a candy bar for Transformers, or you might see some Sour Patch Kids kind of thing. Mint and seal box, mint and box, and loose do count as variants. So I did this for a very short period of time during my collection, mainly during like Unicron trilogy. I would collect a loose one and a sealed one, and so for those actually counted as 2.
Michael, as far as variants go, let's throw out Protectobots from G1, plastic chest versus metal chest.
That did count. So I only had one of those. I had Onslaughts, and so submitted it as a metal chest and submitted it as a plastic chest.
And that would be loose metal, loose plastic, and then you can go back and say mint and seal box metal, mint and seal box plastic.
Correct, as long as you could go through and prove that. So yeah, so there was lots of variations. Unicron Trilogy, just to go back to that, for anyone who collected that line, all of the different stores, the big box stores, had a variation of it. You know, Primus came different, Unicron came like 12 different ways. Each one of those counted as a variant as well. Movie reels ended up counting because we were able to show that it did come from that. I had a couple of those. Incomplete figures actually count. So some people asked, does it have to be an absolute complete figure? And they said, no, it does not have to be complete. Promotional standees and signage. So I had a couple of things from movies. I had a couple of things from like 7-Eleven. Those things did count. Transparency. So if you see some of these really cool transparencies sometimes on eBay pop up that came from G1 or from some other things like that, those counted as well. Ticket stubs count. So if you were a hoarder like me and you kept your ticket stubs from a certain movie and said, hey, I went to Transformers, those actually counted as well. Magazines, obviously, with Transformers content, and what I mean by that is, I can't remember the names of them, but there was just, like, when the the live-action movies came out, there was a lot of them that had, like, Michael Bay on the cover talking about Transformers, or you might have Toy Fair talking about Transformers. Even though it was not a Transformers comic or magazine, it counted because it had the content inside of it. When you go to official conventions, so when BotCon was official and had the licensed product, those counted as well for any kind of programs, badges, bags, swag, anything you got there. Also SDCC, if you go there and go to the Hasbro line, they usually give you a lot of freebies and things like that. Those counted as well. Key cards. If you went to BotCon, I think it was 2009 in Pasadena, they had some key cards. They actually had some movie promotional stuff on it. Those counted. Transformers ads. If you go through a newspaper and see a Transformers ad in there, that counted. If you had a press kit, this one I actually had to prove to them that it was official and show them it was a press kit from the 2007 movie. They eventually accepted that one. Original art prints by a comic book artist. So, for example, I have a lot of the original art that comes out of comic books. Those counted. I just had to show them it came from a particular comic book. But also the commissions counted, too, as long as the artist was working on Transformers, which I thought was really interesting. They accepted those as well. So, again, Jinrai is one of my favorites. I always get some commissions done of him. Those were able to go into the count as well. Cartoon cells, if, it's been a while, but I do have some G1 of Optimus Prime. I have some of the Beast Wars ones, the Japanese Beast Wars that came out, the cells. Those counted. Birthday cake. This was fun. So my wife gets me a Transformers birthday cake. Haha, it was really fun. But I contacted them and said, I've got pictures of it, I've got the receipts, I've got everything like that. Would this count? And they said, yeah. I said, well, I ate it already. And they're like, that's okay, as long as you got pictures of it. And so I thought that was really cool of them. I was able to throw my birthday cake in there, and it counted. And then
So you had your cake and ate it?
I had my cake, and I ate it too. And then the other thing is, like the coins that they had coming out, in particular with the Masterpiece, those counted as well. They counted actually separately from the main bot, which I thought was really interesting. What doesn't count? Thank you. What doesn't count? So we kind of got into this at the beginning because Rick asked, a lot of people come up and go, well, we're KOs counted, we're third-party counted, and all these things. Not unfortunately, but they do not count. They were not included in this. I do have some in my collection. Like if you go through my photos, you might see some in the background, but we were really careful to make sure none of those were counted in any of the videos we did. Diaclone doesn't count either, which I thought was kind of interesting but made sense. I asked him right away. I said, hey, this was kind of the precursor to Transformers. Can those go in? No, those didn't. Garage kits, they did not like Wonderfest stuff from Japan, so I had a few of those items, and they didn't really want to include those. Even though they were licensed, they still considered those to kind of be not included. Signed items without a COA. So my question was, hey, can I count a comic book as a variant if it had Peter Cullen sign it, just as an example? And they said no, unless it has a COA that says it was signed by them and would be counted separately. Individually numbered items as variants. So there was some statues and some comics that you would actually see that had, hey, this is number 1 in the series, or number 2, or 3, or 4, and they said nope, those all count as the same. Individual cards, unless they're sold as individual cards. So again, this one was just very strange, and they were very stringent about it. But if you went up, and BotCon would do this sometimes, some of their signature cards that they gave, those could be bought individually. Those could be counted separate. But any of the card series, I think Armada had a Fleer set that came out and a few others. Every one of them was just one notch. Molds used to make the figure. I have just one of them, but I have a really cool Robot Heroes Bumblebee, the mold that they actually used to make the figure. That one unfortunately didn't count. Business documents. I have some of the old BotCon business documents of them submitting for the license and different things like that. None of those were able to count into it. Digital purchases was another one I thought was interesting, and I think it's kind of a hot topic today, but I like probably a lot of you, I streamed Rise of the Beasts, and I purchased it, and I technically own it. They said no, they don't count anything digital. So comic books digital, movies digital, anything like that did not get included into the count. And then empty boxes. I mean, it makes sense, but I have, I think, a Victory Saber box. And I just said, hey, can we count that in the count? And they said, no, no empty boxes. Commercial availability. So what they say is items can come from the Transformers line, film, television, comic books, anything else that's licensed. And so you had to be able to prove that. And I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to go and look for every original ad that was out there and say, okay, Optimus Prime was sold at Sears back in 1984 for X amount of dollars? And does anyone in here work on TF Wiki? Okay, well, I just thank God, because they helped so much. I said, can I use TF Wiki as proof? Because this is something that shows you all the commercially available products. It goes through all the lines. And they said, yes, you could use that. So I ended up using little snippets like this that you can see and for TF Wiki, and putting that in there as my commercial availability. And that worked great for figures. Licensed products were pretty tough, and that was a little bit different. I had to go to things like you see here with eBay, if I could find any catalogs or old catalogs, that kind of information in it. If you had any receipts, like I was saying with the cake, as long as I had the receipt that said I actually purchased it, they were okay with that. Screenshots, so they did accept the screenshots of anything I could find that was commercially available and put that in. And then trademark copyrights. If they could see an actual Transformers or Hasbro trademark on there, they would accept that. And luckily I didn't have to do that too many times. All right, so that's kind of the Guinness part of things. And now I want to tell you about my journey. I have two cute little nieces. They're both about 10 years old. They live in North Carolina, and that's where I'm originally from. And they didn't have a room in the house we were living in. So I said, you know, let me finally, at 42 years old, get everything out of my mother's house. And so we went, my wife and I and my kids went, and we stayed with my mom, and I started packing everything up. And we got extra large Amazon boxes, and we filled 75 of them. And then we had 30 boxes of comic books, the long boxes, not all Transformers, but just had 30 boxes. And I got done, and I was just exhausted. And I said, all right, I think we're done. I don't think I can do this anymore. And that's when I came to this decision to do Guinness, and I put my submission in at that point. So you can see that kind of here on the timeline. So this was back in August of 2022. I started the process by doing the application and said, hey, I'm interested in doing this. They get back to me somewhere around November and said, okay, you can do this. We approve your application. So now you got to start the documentation process. And that's where I started taking pictures of everything and documenting them on a spreadsheet. This is also when I opened up that small little Facebook group I told you guys about and just started posting updates there so I could kind of document everything as I went along. From there, you can see I live in San Diego, California, so not too far from here. But I had so much stuff over there, all those boxes, and I had to get them here. So I ended up working with a moving company, and they moved it all the way from there, all the way over to us, and I got some pictures of that you'll see in a moment. We started doing the video counts in September, and I'll get into more detail about this, but we really thought we could get it all done in a weekend, and we were so wrong. It just didn't happen. And then after we submitted everything, I submitted everything, I think in late November, early December. And when I did that, then we finally got the approval here in January 2024. All right, so my collection was primarily housed in North Carolina. I am from all over the place. I was born in Fort Lauderdale, lived in North Carolina for a very long time, came out to California for college, moved back to Miami for a little bit, moved back to California in LA, and then went to San Diego. And all this time I was collecting, but I was like, I want to have a kind of a centralized location for everything. And what I did was I ended up putting it into North Carolina. Everything was shipped there, and I had to get it back out. So everything that had been sent coast to coast once there, and then once more to get it back over here. So you can see here is kind of moving day. They had to load up. That's when it actually got here to California. You can see all the different loads that they had to do. And then the actual counting process. You can see my cute little daughter there. Her and my son really had a blast with this. They would come to me with the storage unit, and I'd grab some stuff, and they'd ride on top. But you can see we just had piles everywhere, and I'd bring that over to the house. We'd count and then take it back over there. Now, the counting process, we originally were going to go and say the name of every item, keep it in the order of the spreadsheet, and keep moving along. That did not work out very well. We only got through 2,000 in the first day, and we worked 10 hours. And it was exhausting, and it was a lot of just trying to get everything in order, in alphabetical order. It was a lot of trying to say the things as we were going along. And Guinness had told us you don't have to do that. You just basically have to show it, do a count, and then keep moving on. So if you want to show the video, the first one that says counting with names, I think is the name of it. This is riveting, let me tell you, but I just wanted to show you guys this.
All right, we'll now be counting Alternity. This is the Convoy Black version. This is the Convoy Red version.
Riveting. All right, so after that first day, we were like, we just can't do this. We were all exhausted. We'd eaten way too much pizza, and we just said, all right, Guinness said we didn't have to do it, so let's just try and go through. And so we cut the tape, we started the next day, and we started just counting numbers. And so if it was a transformer that was only one transformer, then we would count that. If it was worth two, I would say two. So there was a lot of one. So if you want to play that video that has me just saying one over and over again, it's called Video with Counts, I think. Or counting with numbers.
2, 1.
Much quicker. But, you know, after about 1,000 times of me saying one, and droning on, I just looked at Mike and said, Mike, if I just showed this to the camera and it's only worth one, you got that, right? And he's like, yeah, because Mike was doing the clicking on the little thing. And so we started with that. So if you want to play that last one, it's, I think, just showing, counting with last video on there, though. Yeah, count show. Obviously goes a lot quicker.
I think you have an opportunity to cut all those videos together and just like speed it up to like a 5-minute video where it's just like everything's moving at hyper speed.
We could probably do that.
Yeah, just one continuous beat.
So these are just a couple of just the photos so you guys kind of get the scope of this. When we did it, we brought everything from the storage unit. I think it's a 10 by 27 storage unit, and we brought it all over to my house, put most of it in the garage, put a lot of it into that kind of waiting room, I guess,
Yeah.
you know, to get everything in. And my wife literally did go away for the weekend. She took the kids camping and was just like, I am out of here. I can't do this. And so you can see here, they were just piled everywhere in my house. Oh, this was a fun one. So I thought it would be really cool to have Unicron, Armada Unicron, and have all the little mini-cons around him, because if anybody read the Armada and Energon Dreamwave comics, you know, they were like his cells or whatever it was supposed to be. And I was like, oh, this would be kind of cool display. I had to figure out which mini-con went to what person after that. And so that's my pile of mini-cons I had to go figure out. All right, documentation, I kind of went into this already, but this just kind of shows you what every single character had. So you can see there at the top, we start out with a picture of what the actual figure is. There's a TF wiki right next to it that talks about when it was released, how it was released, everything like that, and kind of goes through each one of those. So all of that had to be documented. I put that into a nice little file structure so I didn't drive myself crazy. I am a project manager / program manager by trade, so it's one of those things I was like, okay, I got to get this organized. So we basically started out with like a full Guinness folder, and then as you broke it down, it went into figures, art, things of that nature, and within each one of those had the commercial availability for each one of them as well. This is the infamous spreadsheet. I'm not going to go too much into detail about this because it is a little bit of an art chart, but what you can basically see here at the top going from left to right is you have the number of the actual count, you have the name of the file, you've got who made it, Takara, Hasbro licensed, you've got if it was loose or mint and seal box, you've got what line it came from, so that's Arms Micron if you can read that up there, and it has each one of the image files, then it goes into the commercial availability file, then I actually provided a hyperlink to the actual thing too, just in case they weren't able to access something. And so you can see we did that all the way through. We also wrote any kind of variation for them. We had a column for that. We also had any kind of notes, just so I could tell them, hey, this X, Y, and Z, there's something different you need to take a look at here.
So, Mike, for a, let's say, Transformers #1 comic book, then there's, I don't know, 100 variants for that one comic book. How would you organize that? Do you provide a hyperlink for each and every single variant?
Thank God TF Wiki had one page for that new Transformer Skybound that came out with 100 different copies, and I was able to do that. But otherwise, yes, I actually went through and provided, let's say, just like any of the comics. So all the comics luckily had the different covers, but if there was a variation or anything like that that was not listed on TF Wiki, had to go find it, provide a different hyperlink for it.
Wait, what is this comic that wasn't listed on TF Wiki, though?
there were some newer covers, especially when it was coming to Skybound, because we were like in that kind of phase of not being updated yet, because they just, you guys all know if anybody's collecting those comics, there was like a time period where there would be variants and nobody knew where they were even coming from. And so stuff like that. And so I would go to the individual site that was selling them, take a screenshot of that, provide the hyperlink, and that counted. Okay, the video evidence. You know, we went into detail on that, but I just wanted to kind of show off some of these things. I think it was either Howard or Mike had the really good idea of, why don't you bring out your favorite toy, and that'll be the record-breaking one. So you can see there we're at 5151. That's the one that technically broke the record. If anyone's familiar with Parody Deformed, my white whale for years has been to get a complete God Jinrai little Parody Deformed guy, and so we use that, so you can see the tiny little photo there. Other than that, you can see we were thrilled to be going each one of these. And then, would you like to do your over 9,000 joke?
Sure.
Okay.
So when we hit the 9,000 mark, I of course had to do a Photoshop of Mike with Vegeta's face saying, "It's over 9,000!" Which I sent to the head of Transformers, by the way.
So the submission process was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. In hindsight, what I definitely would have done is start uploading photos the second I started taking them. They had a very slow upload process. I was expecting, like everything here in the States, you just kind of plug it in, hit upload, and it goes whoosh, goes up in the cloud. This literally took me, I think ended up being 2 weeks to upload everything. And it was just a slow process. You would hit upload and you have to sit there. It would error out. It would do different things like that. And so it really took a long time to get this uploaded. So we ended up uploading, you can see some of the counts there, but we ended up uploading nearly 10,000 photos. You know, some of them were grouped together, so that was okay. We uploaded the cover letter. We uploaded the witness statements. We had to upload all the commercial availability photos. All of these things just took time to get up there, and it took a really long time to get that process complete. So that was actually probably one of the more difficult parts. Now you can see there at the top, it says once you actually submitted it, it said, okay, we'll get back to you in 12 weeks, let you know what we think. And the thing was, is that wasn't guaranteed that you were actually going to break the record at that point. That was just, oh, we'll get back to you when we can. And so I was looking at the time frame, and this was in January, and I said, you know, Rick and I were talking about possibly doing the panel here, and I said, okay, I definitely want to get this done. So that's where I ended up spending a little bit of money. I did do the premium pass for that, so that would go forward. And luckily they got through it, and we were able to have this here today. All right, then I'm sitting at the gym, and I had been waiting. It was going over the 5-day mark. I'm like, what's going on, Guinness? No one's getting back to me. And of course, they respond in 6 weeks. So I was like, all right, what's happening? Are they going to come back and say, no, it doesn't count? Or are they going to come back and say, you got it? And I got the email that said, your submission has been approved. And it was really great. It was just kind of a nice feeling to go through and be able to have that. And so they do send you a free certificate. Rick's going to show that off here in a moment. And so we were able to get a nice certificate for that, but I did end up getting some for the guys here too. So you can get, anyone who helped you, you can actually buy a certificate that says, I took part in this count, or this attempt. Thank you guys, I appreciate that. All right, so like I said at the very beginning of this, I said, you know, I eventually do want to sell all this. So what I've been doing now is just kind of starting that process. We did try and get a table here, but they're all sold out, so it didn't work out. But I'm actually, I opened up an eBay store, call it Kaye's Collection, you know, very catchy. And what I do is, I'm providing a certificate of authenticity. I'm not charging any more than the going rate for any particular toy, but if somebody wants to take part in this and have a part of my collection, I just provide a little piece of paper that says, you know what, this was part of my collection, it was part of the Guinness World Record, and I signed it for you and tell you what number it was from that actual account. So if anybody's interested, it has been a little bit of a slow process, but I'm just uploading things, it goes on eBay, and again, not charging any kind of premiums or anything like that. Even the lucky draws and some of those things I'm going to be putting up. I'm going to keep probably, in my mind, I'm keeping G1, G2, Masterpiece, and some of the prototypes I have. But other than that, probably about 8,000 items are going to be going up at some point. So I just want to say thank you to everybody. It was really nice, the enthusiasm everybody had about this. They had lots of great questions for me, and it was fun. I got to kind of come out in front of it in any of the groups I'm in on Facebook and just kind of talk about the process and what we had to go through to get it. And it was a year and a half of my life. It was just something that I just every day. And when I got it done, I was like, I'm a little bored. I guess I got to go play with toys. So I really appreciate that. So, Mr. Rick?
Mike, I want to ask you a question before we get into the certificates and the presentation of those certificates. What was the most difficult thing to count during this process?
That's a good question.
Everything in your man cave.
I think the art.
The art was
The art was miserable.
sorting through the art.
So I unfortunately I don't have enough wall space for all the different posters and things I have. And so we had them all rolled up into, what was that?
All the stuff that was rolled up.
Yeah, everything was rolled up into a nice little thing. And so we would have to unroll it, take a picture of it, and then during the video, we also had to unroll it. And then I missed this part, but because of the way we switched the counting and we weren't doing it by the spreadsheet anymore, at the end of all the videos, I had to go through and watch all those videos and realign the spreadsheet to match the videos. So I watched 83 videos or 86 videos of like 20 minutes apiece and would have to then go over to an Excel sheet, move something over here, and make sure everything was in the exact order of the spreadsheet, otherwise they wouldn't count it.
And what was the easiest thing to count?
Comics. Comics were so easy. Boom, 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 boom.
So we do have a little bit of time for some questions, but before we get into that, this is the actual presentation of the Guinness certificates. If I can have the 4 assistants please stand up. Mr. Roger Fisk, Mr. Howard Wagner, Mr. Kyle Nisbeth, and Mr. Mike Carter. Gentlemen, hold him up, please. Hold him high. Woo! And for Michael Kaye, the official Guinness World Record Holder for Transformers memorabilia. Here you are, sir. Congratulations. Now, does that count as one?
It might. I'm gonna have Cullen Welker sign this later so I can hang it up.
So before we get into too many questions, how much time do we have?
Hey, I have to do some plugs first before you do that.
Okay, our plugs. We're plugging
Rick,
stuff.
in his spare time, frames. So if anyone needs any nice framing work done, he actually framed all of our certificates for us. Now, not only that, the one part I forgot about, the selling part, is Rick does have a new toy store called Has Been Toys. We are going to try and get some of my stuff in there. Of course, Rick lives across the country from me, so it may take a little time, but we're going to try and get some stuff in his brick and mortar too.
So I used to work at Hasbro, but now I'm a has-been. So Has-Been Toys and Comics opening March 30th. The frame and picture shop. If you're in Massachusetts, come see me. I got a lot of cool Transformer stuff hanging on the walls. We got 4?
I've got 4.
4.
So we're
going to get into questions.
So,
all right, but I was thinking, I was going to look around and see you. Come here a second. I'm going to ask you a trivia question. Should Optimus Prime be green?
No.
Thank you. You win.
Would you like one of these? You want one of these? That one? Okay. Hold on for a second. I got a certificate for you too. Okay.
You child, come to me. This is a difficult question. Is Optimus Prime tall?
Yes.
Yeah, you win. Congratulations.
I got a slag.
How about you? Come here. All right. Let me go and throw an easy one at you.
Okay.
Spell the word. Oh, no, should I not do that? No, okay, all right, okay, all right. A train leaves Pittsburgh, traveling at 475 miles an hour. All right. Who is your favorite Dinobot?
Grimlock?
That is correct. You've been chosen. Come here. Come to me, child. All right, last question. What is my name?
Thank you.
Ooh.
Rick.
All right. Don't. What? All right. Let's try again. What? Where are you from?
Arizona.
Is that correct? All right, you win. All right. Does anyone have a question? This guy he's been like chomping at the bit. Hi.
So you guys did a pretty thorough job with your spreadsheet and all that, and you submitted, how many did they actually decline?
So that is a great question. Amazingly, they didn't decline any of it. However, I did. So when we did it, you actually had to do an audit first. And so what I went through when I was going through those videos, watching them, there was a couple things I was looking for. One was duplicates, and one was things that didn't count. So obviously duplicates are pretty straightforward. So like, I would see that we counted Hot Rod 3 times for whatever reason, just as an example. And so I'd say, okay, this was listed as a duplicate. So that's one of those things in that initial cover letter that I had to say, if you see something in yellow, it didn't count. I also had to make a separate line on the spreadsheet to say, this is what the counter said, but this is my submission, so it would be less than what I submitted. I also found that I counted a BotCon 2004, which was not an official convention, like a Peter Color signature or something like that. And so I pulled that out of it, and I would put those in red. I ended up pulling out 347 pieces that were either duplicates or something like that. I also found as I was auditing it that when I initially did this and took pictures of everything and made the lines in the spreadsheet, that we missed over 100 items. How, I don't know. And so there was definitely a lot of auditing process going on. But luckily with all the prep work I did and showing them how I audited it and showing them what they did, they actually didn't kick back anything, amazingly.
All right, next question.
Out of all the items up there, what's your favorite?
I have to say the G2 Stunticons, and I'll tell you why. The G2 Stunticons, to me, was like the epitome of collecting. I used to go to the BotCons and the Hartmans put them on, and they brought these to their collection one year, and I was just like, can't beat that. There's no way on earth that I'm going to be able to own those one day. And in early 2000s, they sold their collection, and I had the opportunity to get them. So I was lucky enough to get all of theirs. Somebody asked, and I just want to answer this, why do you have 2 breakdowns? Well, if anyone knows, there was actually splits. The exclusive was split between BotCon and actually Transcon. And so Transcon got a very small number of them, and I don't know which one it is, but it has a sticker on it. And so that's one that actually came from Transcon and is technically a little bit rarer than the BotCon one. So that's why I have 2 of those. But those are my favorites, definitely. But of course, I love all my lucky draws. What can I say?
Okay, do you have the completed versions of any Toylines, animated, Beast Wars, etc.?
That's a good question. So G1, the American, and I'm not going to go deep in variations because I don't have the 27 different primes, but just in general, like an Optimus Prime, a Prowl, and things like that, I do have a complete G1 set. Of course, I think that most of us grew up with that, and that was just my favorite, so I do have a complete G1. The rest of them, I was pretty much a completist up to the first movie. And then my wife comes home with a bag from Target of all the little tchotchkes that you could get that was gum and like erasers and different things like that, and I was just like, I can't be a completist anymore. It's too difficult. So that's when I really started to scale back a little bit.
All right, 3 more questions. Number 3.
Do you have a rough estimate about how much this all cost?
So I can... generally, like I was saying, the Guinness part was pretty cheap, to be honest. Just what I had to pay to Guinness. That was $6.50, but only because I opted to get it done quicker. But moving this stuff across the country was the biggest expense. That probably cost me over $4,000 to get it from coast to coast. And it was just because there were so many boxes and everything like that. And then, of course, I've got a storage unit that I'm paying for every month and things of that nature. But so rough estimate, probably about $5,000, $6,000. Plus, I had to feed these guys. That was expensive.
That's another 10,000 for me.
Yeah.
Mike, what is the estimated,
Value?
value of your all right, I'm going to let you ask it.
Yeah, what is the value of all 9,000 or so?
Yeah, so I get this question a lot because you saw, I don't know why they used that line when they did the interview. They're like, oh, over $300,000. They said, how much do you think your collection's worth? And I'm like, I have no idea. I haven't done that part of it yet. But I said, in my mind, I went, okay, $30 times all the figures I got, but obviously some are worth more, some are worth less. And so, honestly, I think I'll probably have closer to $500,000 worth of stuff when I'm done.
And a follow-up question real quick.
Yeah, do you have insurance on those? And if so, do you have any recommendations on how to insure your toys?
So, I technically do not, which I know people will probably tell me I'm crazy, but I did find something interesting. I had a flood in my house a few years ago, and the water soaked some of the boxes, and what I found was my home insurance actually covered it. So they covered it as a collectible and reimbursed me for eBay prices of what you would have to pay to get them new. So like, I'm trying to think of one that was, I had the MP01, but the white version of Ultra Magnus, and I went on eBay and showed them what I have to pay for it today, and my insurance company actually paid me for that.
Yeah, by the way, I use Allstate for my collection. So that's a good way, if you need to insure your collection.
He also works there too.
I chose to have a separate policy. Yeah. Last question.
So Transformers is, of course, not just a toy franchise, but also media, cartoons, movies, and all. So in all of that, who is your favorite character?
So I kind of talked about this, and I'll tell everybody the story, and I think we're going to have to end there. God Jinrai, and it's kind of weird, but it started out as Powermaster Optimus Prime, and I think I mentioned it in my little interview they did with me. But I was little, and it was just one of those formative memories where I remember being sick, and my mother would make me feel better, brings in this nice boxed Powermaster Optimus Prime, and it was just so neat. I mean, anybody who's played with Optimus Prime, especially from that era, you could combine it with the trailer, it combined with HIQ. I mean, it was just really neat to have that. And then I go to college and I find Master Force. And I'm like, well, this is cool. There's another character that's just like Powermaster Optimus Prime. And he got absolutely destroyed by Overlord and had to power up. And then he got destroyed by other guys and had to have the God Jinrai armor. And I was just like, this is really neat. So it's my favorite character from my childhood is Powermaster Optimus Prime, but then powered up and then able to take on these new characters I'd never seen before. So I actually have just about every God Jinrai, whether it be official or not official, just absolutely love the character.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending the panel. Congratulations to Michael Kaye. Thanks to his friends. And by the way, all the stuff up here is free. Thank you very much, guys. Enjoy the rest of TFcon.
Famous words of Optimus, till all are one.